Welcome to The Sideshow.
All right, welcome to another edition of The Sideshow, and we have got a good one for you today. Mike, you'll be taking the lead, so why don't you let everybody know the great album that we're going to be talking about today?
Thanks, Mark. Today we're going to be talking about what I think is one of the classic, albums from the classic rock era, which is the debut album by The Doors, eponymously titled The Doors, and we're going to talk about side one. The Doors are, on the one hand, there is no question that the Doors were a very important band from the late 60s era and the Summer of Love and all that kind of thing. Although can, depending on who you talk to, be a kind of a polarizing band at the same time, because there are a lot of people who just are really all in with the Doors as a band and is either their favorite band or one of their favorite bands. And there's a fair amount of other people, and I probably am more in this second category, but a fair number of people who recognize the quality of the music and the significance of what the band was doing during that time period, the last years of the 60s and 1970 thereabouts. But there's just something about the whole package that doesn't quite sit well. And if I'm being a little ambiguous, it's because it's a hard thing to kind of put a finger on. But even people in the second category who might raise an eyebrow at what various aspects of the Doors presentation and music and whatnot, they generally speaking can't argue that the music itself, for the most part, pretty good. And certainly belongs among the artists who were very significant over the course of the classic rock era, which started really just a couple of years before the Doors' debut album came out in 1967, and they're still big now. In a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. There's something, and I don't know, maybe I feel that way about everybody that wore leather pants a lot. Maybe that's the deal. But there are clearly figures, individuals, celebrities, certainly musicians, that their celebrity and their, like, the scene that they created was almost separate from their music. Kind of like you had pop art, and then you had Andy Warhol, right? Where you've got this person that's kind of above and beyond the art that they're doing. And let's face it, Jim Morrison was a very central figure in the psychedelic rock kind of era at the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, that was really significant, and just him and of himself and the way that he performed and kind of the attention that he got, that was somehow separate from the music. Which I'd agree with you. If you don't know about any of that stuff and you just put the album on, right? I mean, that's really the way that it should be judged. And certainly this album was awfully good. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to talk about it.
Well, and you mentioned Jim Morrison. I don't think it can be reasonably debated that he was the figurehead of the band. He was not necessarily the only creative force in the band. I think that they worked as a genuine band.
Yes,
and some of the songs. Robbie Krieger, the guitar player, was on his own, I believe, an excellent guitarist, and basically wrote their first big hit, "Light My Fire." But be all that as it may,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really deny that Jim Morrison was the focus, and he is a complex character.
Yeah.
He's someone who's very easy to caricature.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really kind of pull back some of the layers, I mean, the guy was actually quite intellectual, not particularly disciplined.
Yeah.
And
Two
he was
different things.
and he was a genuine poet.
Mm-hmm.
Now that doesn't mean that he was a great poet or even a good one, but I mean,
Yeah.
he was a poet, and he understood concepts like Nietzsche's claim that Greek tragedy was the most perfect form of art that humankind had achieved, because it struck the balance between the Apolline and the Dionysian, the ways of Apollo and the ways of Dionysus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jim Morrison understood that, but see,
Yeah.
he mixed a little too much Dionysus, not enough Apollo, into what he was dishing out. And I mentioned that I describe him as a poet, and I think that's accurate. And when I was doing most of the listening, my period of time where I did my most Doors listening
Mm-hmm.
was the early college years, when I was going to college at the University of Minnesota. And and around that time, you're still in your, you haven't turned 20 yet, and you're listening to music and stuff. And back in that's when the book No One Here Gets Out Alive, written by a man named Danny Sugarman, who was connected to the Doors in some manner that I don't recall. But that was a very popular book, basically told the story of the Doors, with a lot of emphasis on what Jim Morrison was doing.
Sure.
And there was an album that came out in the sometime in the early 70s, or sometime during the 70s, after Jim Morrison had died, called American Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some Doors music on it. There was a live version of Roadhouse Blues, and there were some other clips from some songs. But it was a lot of Jim Morrison reciting poetry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some recordings that he had made, before he died. And, I mean, that's the sort of thing that you should listen to when you're 19. It is. I'm not advocating that any, mature adults out there take the time to listen to American Prayer, because while there is some of the imagery in the poems that he's reciting are memorable, it's just kind of ghoulish and just sort of too much Dionysus, not enough Apollo. But
A reoccurring theme.
And when you listen to, I mean, when you read about the antics that Jim Morrison engaged in on stage, and whatnot, there was an Oliver Stone film about the Doors starring Val Kilmer, which came out. It was either in like 1989, 1990, 91. It was right around the turn of the decade, from the 80s into the 90s. And, it's more or less consistent with the story that's told in this book that I mentioned.
Yeah.
But, people have had an opportunity to kind of get a flavor for what Jim Morrison, was really all about. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of sad. But all this stuff aside, the guy could get up in front of people and capture their attention and keep it.
Yeah.
And he really had a unique and I think very interesting voice that he along with the other members of the band really put to good use. Just in terms of the sound of their music.
Yeah.
And so they were an interesting group. and they're worth people's time. I mean, and a lot of their music is played on the radio. So you know, whether it's "Light My Fire," "Break On Through," and then other hits like "Love Me Two Times," "Hello, I Love You," "Touch Me," "L.A. Woman," "Riders on the Storm." Blah. There's plenty of material out there.
Yeah, and especially like after Apocalypse Now, the song "The End," I started to get a little bit more popularity from its use at the beginning of that movie, and yeah, all the other ones that you talked about. Yeah, that's pretty regular airplay on classic rock stations. So still a lot of people enjoying them today.
Yeah, and so in any case, and the Doors were a band from Los Angeles, California, and the members of the band met probably around 19. There's a lot of information about the Doors in this. In the book that I mentioned, there's the film. There's a lot of information on the internet that people can check out if they're interested in more details about the Doors. But the members met, in the mid '60s, around 1965. Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek, the keyboard player in the Doors, had met because they had attended some film classes together at. I don't know whether it was UCLA or it was a college in Los Angeles, and they would hang out on like Venice Beach and stuff like that, and got to kind of know each other. Apparently, the kind of the lore is that Jim Morrison recited some lyrics that he'd written to a half a dozen songs or something while they were hanging out, and Manzarek thought, "Hey, this is great." But in any event, they started playing together. I believe in outperforming in clubs in Los Angeles. I believe in 1966, they had a so-called residency at a kind of a seedy club in Los Angeles called the London Fog, and then eventually moved up to the Whiskey A Go Go, which was a more fashionable place. They opened for some bigger acts there, and then were noticed by some record people from Elektra Records, and then ended up recording. Yeah. And this first album, which, if I'm recalling correctly, came out in early, like January of '67. Yeah, early 1967, but I believe was actually recorded in 1966, in the second half of 1966, and it's been said that their first album is just it's the stuff they were playing, when they were out performing. The same songs that they were performing out at the clubs and whatnot is what they put on their first album, and the first album was one of those albums that was current, kind of along with like Sgt. Pepper and Jefferson Airplane's Surrealistic Pillow, during 1967, the Summer of Love, so called, and they became big, with the Light My Fire was a massive hit. They were on the Ed Sullivan Show, blah 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 blah. They were big, and they actually turned out a fair number of decent albums. Some of them not quite as good as the others, but this album is turned into a major classic by almost any reasonable standard. Their second album was called Strange Days, I believe released in 1967 as well, which had the hits Love Me Two Times, a longer song called When the Music's Over, which was a little bit more... it was sort of a more conventional version of The End, really, to some extent. The Waiting for the Sun was an album that came out that had Hello, I Love You. The Soft Parade album had Touch Me. And somewhere in there was an album called Morrison Hotel, which is regarded as one of their better albums, that had songs like Peace Frog, Roadhouse Blues, and actually got some fairly decent critical response, even from Dave Marsh, who it can be kind of
everybody.
Yeah, I mean, there's I mean, the people that he likes, he really likes.
Yeah.
Whether it's Springsteen or Van Morrison or Otis Redding or CCR or whatever, the people he doesn't like, he doesn't like.
Yeah.
And says so. But he spoke very highly, for example, of the album Morrison Hotel. And then eventually they also released their final studio album called L.A. Woman, which had the song L.A. Woman, Riders on the Storm. So they and that came out in either 1970, maybe 1971. Jim Morrison died in 1971. And over the course of that time, they really did put out a fair amount of decent music. I mean, Waiting for the Sun and Soft Parade, I don't think were as good as the other 4 albums. And I don't think any of them are really as good as this first album. But Strange Days and L.A. Woman were very serviceable albums. Strange Days probably a little more so. And Morrison Hotel was kind of the wild card in their set of albums that they released that caught the attention of a lot of critics, even though it didn't have the same massive hits as some of the other albums had on them. And so they were an important band for a few years, from about 1967 through 1970, 1971. When Jim Morrison died, I think that generally speaking, that was the end of the Doors. For all practical purposes, and like they say, they're still, they were in kind of a renaissance of sorts in the early '80s. I can remember, and part of it was because this book came out, and maybe they never slipped away from popularity in the meantime anyway, but.
Yeah.
When I started listening to them, I mean, living in the dorm in Minneapolis, a lot of people were into the Doors. And by the end of the decade, there's Oliver Stone film comes out with Val Kilmer, Iceman as Jim Morrison and whatnot. So a band worth listening to, and a band worth talking about.
I would agree. There was just something that continued to stay with. I mean, they were playing. We were listening. We'd hear the Doors on WAPL and that type of thing. It didn't seem to get that wasn't people's favorite band, at least in the circles that we were listening to music in high school. That was my recollection. I was really started to hear them when I first joined the Army, about the same time that you were seeing them. And again, you start to come in contact with a lot of different people from different parts of the country. And there's a group of them that really dig the Doors. And I can remember there was a barracks buddy of mine from Cleveland, and he was listening to the Doors all the time. And that just, kind of, and he'd been listening to it for as long as he'd been listening to music. So kind of hard to describe, just, who catches on and who doesn't. But once you do give it a listen again, they had some very good albums, both commercially and critically. And what we're going to talk about today was certainly one of their best.
No. And I don't, I currently don't possess a copy of the vinyl, but I know that you do, Mark, and maybe we can let everyone take a look. It's a pretty straightforward album cover with Jim Morrison's image highlighted along with the 3 other band members on the front cover, and basically the same type of thing on the back, except all 4 of the band members are kind of have equal billing, so to speak, on the back cover, and just the list of the songs and whatnot.
Sure.
Pretty straightforward. There's no gatefold on the album, and the side 1 is what we're going to talk about today. And side 1 starts out with what is arguably the signature song of the Doors in terms of where they were really coming from, in my humble opinion. And One, I mentioned that, Jim Morrison was I called him an undisciplined intellectual and a poet, perhaps not the best poet out there, but the name The Doors comes from a book written by Aldous Huxley about his experience taking mescaline in, I believe it was the early 1950s, and it's called The Doors of Perception. And that Doors of Perception is taken from a William Blake poem that says, when the doors of perception are cleansed, every man sees everything as it is, infinite. That's a paraphrase, not a direct quote. But and William Blake was someone that Jim Morrison was familiar with as well. So that's where their name comes from. So that's kind of something where they were coming from. And there's a song on side 2 of this first album called End of the Night, which is taken from, the idea for that song came from a William Blake poem, for example. And certainly, Jim Morrison was into other artists than just that, than just William Blake, but that's where the name comes from. And, I mentioned End of the Night, and Break On Through, the full title, there's a parenthetic, break on through in parentheses to the other side.
Yep. And
we can listen to a clip in a minute here for those that may not have heard the song to kind of get an idea. But the opening lyrics, the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Now, there it's like there's night and there's day, and you want to get from one to the other, and whatnot. Well, wow, pretty profound. But I think that the concept in the song "Break On Through" means something a little bit more complex than that, and something more of a genuine spiritual quest to know what is awaiting us on the other side. And a lot of that, and I think that sets a good table for where Jim Morrison was coming from, in my opinion. I mean, you got anything to add to that?
No, I'd agree. And the idea of break on through to the other side. First of all, I think it was very intentional that this was the first song on the first side of their album, because they're asking their audience right from the beginning, look, let's break on through to the other side. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I think of people, especially looking at some of the stories in history about the Doors, was that, well, you can use drugs to break on through to the other side, to get a more expanded type perception. I really think this means a lot of different things. The side can be defined by convention and working 9 to 5 and doing what your parents told you and going here instead of there, whatever. There's a lot of sides that can be broken through. And I think that most people are somehow constricted by one of those. And it should really be a goal to break on through. You don't have to stay on the other side, but you should at least experience it, right? To understand what's there. So I think it was it's like, look, give us a listen here. Song 1, side 1, album 1 of the Doors. This is the first thing we've heard about these people. It's like, hey, let's break on through to the other side, and maybe we can get to know each other, right? From this. And man, he had a forceful way of telling us to break on through.
All right. Well, let's listen to a little of it, and then we'll continue our discussion after.
The day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah. We chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there. But can you still recall the time we cried? Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
There's basically, that's about the first half of the song. Most of the songs on this side are fairly straightforward and short. But here, and one of the notable things, if you get on the internet, you can read that one of the aspects of this song is apparently the drums at the beginning are a bossa nova rhythm. I didn't know. I don't know how much I care, but it that's what people noticed apparently at one point. And it's once it gets started, it's the guitar kind of comes in, and it's really kind of an in your face rocker.
Yeah.
Just with that lead guitar, and when he gets to the break on through to the other side, this isn't people doing the bossa nova.
Yeah.
That's not what this song is. And another aspect of the beginning of the song that I think you can tell, and I believe they actually used a studio bass guitar player in recording this, but in addition to the drums at the beginning of this song, you can kind of tell that keyboard oriented bass and I say bass in terms of BASS and also BASE.
Yeah.
As
rhythm section.
And you can just kind of tell that's where the creation of these songs really came from in terms of the bass. But as I said, it quickly gets into a relatively, maybe ferocious is a little strong of a word, but that lead guitar sound and just his break on through, there's sort of a wildness to it that is definitely rock and roll. Not nothing. No. This isn't Latin music. Bossa nova. This is rock and roll.
Yeah, and we're going to be hearing a lot of organ, a lot of keyboard. Through all of their songs. That was a really important part. When they were on the road, they didn't have a bass player. As you said, in the studio, they leveraged an actual bass guitar player for their recording. They felt they needed that. But on the road, it was their keyboard player that delivered all the bass sounds on top of everything else. But we're going to be hearing a lot of it. Now, that guitar, though, to your point, is absolutely there. And, he was a key figure, Robbie Krieger was a key figure in the creativity of the band and a part of the music. So we're going to hear that. But you're going to hear a lot of organ in these songs as well, and some more than others. But to me, this is a great introduction to the force of Jim Morrison's vocals. That low pitched but powerful, right? Kind of driving that break on through to the other side. Was it just it kind of explodes at you from the speakers. So regardless of the types of music they were leveraging in the background of the types of instruments, what does capture you is the power of these vocals on top of this really kind of powerful song.
Yeah, and kind of a fun fact that a lot of people might already be aware of, where he sings "Everybody loves my baby," she get the the original recording. He's saying she gets high, she gets high, and the record company said, nope, ain't gonna have that. And so they kind of cut it out.
Yeah.
So just the she get and leaves it to the listener's imagination. And I don't think that anything that the record company did stopped people from sort of gleaning the drug-oriented aspects of this music.
Yeah.
So it's really a fairly straightforward song, and it introduces that concept, break on through, and we've already talked about that. And I don't know if we don't need to belabor that point, but I think it is the simplest way to sum up where Jim Morrison was coming from. That that he wanted to, and he thought that everybody should try to break on through to the other side, and whatever was there, we'll find out. And take it from there.
Yep, I'd agree.
Okay, and there are 6 songs on this side, and moving on to number 2, which is a great one, in my humble opinion. It's called Soul Kitchen, and why don't just for this one, why don't we just play a clip to introduce those that may not have heard it to the song, and then we can kind of have the bulk of our discussion on the other side.
Sounds good.
The clock says it's time to close now. I guess I better go now. I really like to stay here all night. The cars crawl past all stuffed with ice. Lights share their hollow glow. Your brain seems bruised with numb surprise. Still one place to go. Still one place to go. Let me sleep all night in your soul kitchen. Warm my mind with your gentle snow. Turn me out in a wonder, baby. Stumbling in the neon. Secret alphabet. I light another cigarette. Learn to forget. Learn to forget. Learn to forget. Learn to forget.
All right. Okay. Now, the Soul Kitchen, can mean all sorts of things. And I think that the initial, impression that one might have is the Soul Kitchen would be the bedroom, the girl's bedroom. But, and the lyrics don't foreclose that interpretation. But the song was apparently inspired by a place, like a restaurant, that may have sold soul food, that Jim Morrison used to hang out at, and then he'd stay there until the bitter end, and they'd be like, "Look, we're closing, man. You got to go." And so the lyrics, I'd really like to stay here all night. The cars crawl past all stuffed with eyes. Streetlights share their hollow glow. Your brain seems bruised with numb surprise. Still one place to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then so he wants to sleep all night in her soul kitchen. And then, turn me out and I'll wander, baby, stumbling in the neon groves.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't want to go home. He wants to stay out and see what the night will bring.
Well, and I also think it can signify, because when you talk about a place like this, let's say it was this late night eatery that the band would go maybe after their gigs or whatever, get something to eat, and just when they were there, and you can picture, they've got all these, different kind of, statements kind of describing the city with the lights and this type of stuff at night. And this was a place that was away from all the hecticness, the craziness, the uppers, the downers, the fans and everything, and they could sit around the table and it was peace for them. And this can come to represent all kinds of things as you move through life. This can be coming home at the end of the night. This can be with a person, with a lover, with a partner or a good friend, someone where, you can get away from, what can be a dreary, bad world or whatever. I do think that this song, the idea of it centers more on a place like that, because at several points in the lyrics, he indicates, no, I know I have to go, right? I mean, it's closing. He's not begging to stay. He's saying he'd like to stay. He'd like to be able to sleep here, but he knows he has to leave, which makes it different than kind of a guy thinking that the soul kitchen is, kind of a sweet thing that he is trying to get with. More of like a place of refuge, and he knows when he leaves, he's going to be wandering and not necessarily he's back into the fray. But just the way the vocals go, it's a neat descriptor of a place that he's obviously comfortable and wants to be at. This is his place to be and where he wants to be, and he doesn't want to go. And it could be a club. I think a lot of us at some points in our life have had maybe a bar that has been fun to hang at with our friends until closing time, and you always dread that last call, and then it's time to go home, back into the street with your lit cigarette and make your way home. I think it can mean a lot of things, but it captures that kind of longing to stay.
And it's it's hard not to, in my opinion, interpret the song as having some sort of romantic component, or at least some
Sure.
reaching out for contact or connection, between the singer, a man, and a woman. It's that, warm my mind near your gentle stove.
Mm-hmm.
Don't turn me out, because I'll just be stumbling in the neon groves.
Mm-hmm.
But I do basically agree with you that really it's just, I don't want to go home.
Yeah.
And kind of the old blues performers, when it was closing time and they played their last song, one of the statements that used to get made was, all right, that's all for tonight. You don't have to go home, but you've got to get the hell out of here.
That's right. You can't stay here. Yeah.
You can't, whatever you're going to do tonight, go home, go somewhere else. You can't do it here.
Yeah.
And, but and I know the little bridge part there with your fingers weave quick minuets. Now, whether he says minarets or minuets, I think is up for debate.
Mm-hmm.
What does he actually sing? Now, a minuet is sort of like a dance.
Yeah.
And so your fingers weave quick minuets makes sense. Now, minarets, if I understand correctly, is like a tower on the side of a mosque or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, but it sounds like he's saying minarets to me. But
Yeah.
I think minuets. But, your fingers weave quick minuets, speak in secret alphabets. I light another cigarette, learn to forget. I mean, that's the guy sitting at the counter when the woman is kind of looking at him saying, well, that's all well and good, Jim, but you's gots to go.
Yeah, that's right. Because I want to go home.
Yeah. I want to go home and go to sleep. You may want to do this.
It's kind of interesting too, just on the the sound and the feel of the music itself. This song has a very '60s vibe to it, right? Almost like a Batman theme kind of vibe to the very start of it. You definitely know you're listening to a '60s song, not in like a corny way, but just it's there, that kind of feel that was predominant when you think about the tunes that were coming out at this time.
Well, and the Doors, the music behind the Doors has been described as having this cocktail lounge sort of sound. I think in large part because of the organ sound. But I mean, organ was a big part of late '60s music around this time. I mean, Pink Floyd's debut album, 1967, and they were a very different band in 1967 than they were, in the '70s when they created, Metal, Dark Side of the Moon, and whatnot. And very organ-heavy music.
Yeah,
and it sounds like and it could have been the same kind of organ that Ray Manzarek was using with the Doors. So there was nothing unusual about there being an organ having a presence in '60s music, and this song more so than some other songs, it's more of that '60s organ sound, like '60s pop music or '60s rock music organ sound, than some of the other tracks. But I don't know. I have always thought that this is one of the best songs on the side, because it's a very representative '60s pop rock song that captured that vibe that you mentioned very well.
Yeah,
and,
great song.
Okay, moving on. The third song is called "The Crystal Ship." This is a slower song, a gentler song than either of the first two. And why don't we listen to a clip of the first half of the song or so to give everyone a taste, and then we'll continue talking after.
All right, let's do it.
Before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss, another flashing chance at bliss, another kiss, another kiss. The days are bright and filled with pain. Enclose me in your gentle rain. The time you ran was too insane. We'll meet again. We'll meet again.
All right. Well, and that's basically the first half of the song, and there's that keyboard break sort of in the middle. And it's really, you can get on the internet and what people think about what he was talking about and what is the crystal ship and whatnot. But I think it's just a love song about it's just a love song, and my sense is that those last lyrics before the keyboard break there, that the time you ran was too insane. We'll meet again. We'll meet again. I don't think she ever comes back. And I think what the crystal ship is, and those lyrics are, at the last verse of the song goes, the crystal ship is being filled, 1,000 girls, 1,000 thrills, 1,000,000 ways to spend your time. When we get back, I'll drop a line. And so I think he's sort of telling this girl, well, look, if you're not interested in me, I'm going to go on this. I'm going to I'm going to sail on the crystal ship, and I'll check in with you when I get back. Now, the delivery, the actual performance of the song is a little gentler than that. It's not a, you're lost toots type kiss off song. But that's how I see it.
And I think of it a little bit differently. First of all, I really like this song. This is one of my favorite Doors songs. Wasn't a big hit of theirs at the time, but it, as far as like singles that they were coming out with, not the first song people think about when it comes to Doors songs, but I really like it. I think that although it is a softer song, there's some power, there's some build in the vocals that I really enjoy. But I see the crystal ship as the passage of time. I mean, I think when you talk about She Never Came Back, I think this girl is already gone. She was gone a long time ago, just hasn't left his consciousness yet. And, in fact, he was just hoping, could he get one more kiss until she slips into unconsciousness. And that's not, she's about to pass out from a roofie at the end of the night. I think she's about to sail out of his consciousness. And the whole notion of there's all kinds of things throughout your life that enter the crystal ship. 1,000 girls, 1,000 thrills. All these things are going by you, and they're in your mind, but they're gone. And to me, that's the saddest notion of how people are preoccupied with how much they want these things that they no longer have. Not necessarily that they lost them, but they've already happened, and that they're now in the past. That's always been my interpretation of the song. I have no idea what they were thinking when they put the words down and sang it, but that's what I've always heard. And either way, I mean, I think that whether it's he's going to go on this ship or this is a ship that has taken somebody else, they don't really even introduce the ship until the very end of the song, right? And the beginning of the song is just kind of talking about how he feels about this woman, someone that he certainly wants to kiss right now. And I think that first line, the first two lines are just they're very powerful. They're very soft. They're almost spoken, but before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss. And he just does it so well to kind of set the song up, and I really enjoy this song. That first verse, I'd like to have another kiss, another flashing chance at bliss, and I think that you can interpret the song as this is something that the singer is saying to a woman who it's after they're in bed and they've just made love but before we just fall asleep, let's have another kiss, another flashing chance at bliss. It's sort of like, look, because if we go to sleep, then Monday morning comes and you're gone. Yeah.
And so let's enjoy. Let's try to achieve this blissful state while we still have the opportunity. And that's different from someone who whether it's a permanent couple of some kind. If you're married, if it's something where, well, no, we don't have to worry about that because we got tomorrow night and the night after that and the night after that. This is the transience of this situation, whatever it is. I mean, that's definitely a part of it. You know, the days are bright and filled with pain. Enclose me in your gentle rain. I mean, that's really just a very poignant appeal. You know, just let's give each other shelter from the storm, sort of thing. And then, but you ran. You know, we'll meet again, and it's. And I like your thought about the passage of time, because that it's kind of like, look, maybe we'll see each other again in the future. Maybe we won't. If we do, I'm sure it'll be pleasant. If not, that's what the passage of time does.
Yeah.
But it's a very pleasant sounding song. I mean, maybe a little maudlin in its because there is definitely sentimentality in the music, if not in Morrison's singing.
Yeah.
Because I think sentimental is not the appropriate word for anything Jim Morrison does.
Yeah, I'd agree. It did provide yet another opportunity for in that line that you mentioned just a minute ago to point out he's not a big fan of the daytime, right? He doesn't like the daytime. There's light and pain or whatever. He enjoys the night. Is what he does.
So and I agree with you. It is an underrated Doors song. Yeah. In any case, track number 3, The Crystal Ship, and moving right along is 20th Century Fox, the fourth track on the side. And, 20th Century Fox, I think has, I think that it's fair to say that the character that is being sung about is potentially an actress, 20th Century Fox, a movie studio, but also, and probably more to the point, is talking about the kind of woman who is stepping out at this particular point in time, in the late 60s, in the summer of love, who is attractive and who, all the guys have the hots for, and those aren't mutually exclusive ideas, because, and why don't we listen to a clip with some of the lyrics? Like most of the songs so far, these songs are put together in relatively straightforward arrangements. We don't really need multiple clips to convey. So let's listen to one of 20th Century Fox, and we'll continue our conversation on the other side.
Sounds good.
Well, she's fashionably lean, and she's fashionably late. She'll never rank a scene, she'll never break a day. But she's no drag, just watch the way she walks. She's a 20th century fox. She's a 20th century fox. No tears, no fears, no ruin years, no clocks. She's a 20th century fox. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so she's fashionably lean. She's fashionably late. Mm-hmm. She'll never wreck a scene. She'll never break a date. And, and that could be the Never Wreck a Scene. Now, could that be a scene in a movie where she's the actress, 20th Century Fox, or she'll never wreck a scene like she's on the scene.
Yeah.
She's hanging out at the right place.
She makes the scene.
She makes the scene.
Yeah.
It's now, it's not a particularly profound song.
Yeah.
She's no drag. Just watch the way she walks. She's a 20th Century Fox. No tears, no fears, no ruined years, no clocks. Now, the no ruined years, I think that definitely would fit into an actress, sometimes some Hollywood performers they'd have boom times and they'd have not, for whatever reason, whether it was personal difficulties or whatever it might be. But no clocks. Now that I think is definitely a sort of pay on to the 60s scene. And also, kind of ties in with what you mentioned about the previous song, The Crystal Ship, about, the passage of time kind of being the enemy.
Yeah.
To some extent, or not necessarily the enemy, but certainly something to be fought against.
Yeah.
And no clocks. I mean, I think in the, that's something that was a thing in the late 60s. Don't get caught up. That was the whole trap of life. The alarm goes off at X o'clock in the morning and you got to be to your employer at Y o'clock. And, then you'll have a little break for lunch and it's all, no.
Yep. I think that a lot of actresses, everything was a ticking clock. They knew whether it was whatever. You hit 29 and you are done, right? And even just seeing a clock move was probably a bummer. So it's like no clocks here. And then, but that fed right into that notion of clocks control too much anyway. Like you said, you got to be to work. You got to go do this. You got to go do that. I also think there's a chance this could have been a TV star as well, although obviously 20th Century Fox is more movie-like. But, the lines in there, got the world locked up inside a plastic box. Certainly, kind of the notion of a television comes up there, comes in there as well. But clearly a star, and, the play on the words, she's a 20th Century Fox, living in the 20th Century Fox, the entertainment company. She's a fox. I mean, it's all just incredibly clever.
The no clocks doesn't necessarily jive with a performer, a Hollywood actor or actress that shows up on time.
Yeah.
And is a professional and therefore successful and whatnot. I mean, now this is, and when, I mentioned earlier that, Jim Morrison was perhaps a lousy one, but a poet. This isn't poetry. This is songwriting. I mean, rock.
Pretty straightforward songwriting too.
Rock lyrics are not poetry. I mean, and there are some rock lyrics that are poetic, and some of his poet's cleverness. I think that's a good word.
Yeah.
It's just sort of clever wordplay. This, if someone is going to tout Jim Morrison as a poet, this isn't the song you're going to look to.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like it's got similarities to Soul Kitchen in terms of it kind of has that 70s vibe, or 60s, late 60s vibe. And also we were able to hear a little of it at the end of the clip that we just heard, but has some pretty decent guitar from Robbie Krieger, who manages to kind of get himself out there on this performance. And so a workmanlike Doors song that fits in very well on this album and on this side, and has some clever wordplay as we've been talking about, but I don't know if it's anything more complicated than that. I do tend to agree. I do tend to agree with you that the plastic box referred to in the last set of lyrics is probably referring to a television. Got the world locked up inside a plastic box. It's like, oh, she's the it girl of the moment, and everyone's tuning in to see her on the tube.
Yep.
All right. Well, the album takes somewhat of a leftward turn with the next song, which is the Alabama. It's called the Alabama Song, and parenthetically Whiskey Bar, and this is a song that comes from a play or like a musical, may have been an opera of sorts. The words by Bertolt Brecht and the music by Kurt Weill, who were a musician and a lyricist, or a poet and a musician, but words by Brecht, music by Weill, and Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill's work could be the subject of its own podcast, and so I don't know how deep we want to delve into that. But they were performing, or their work was being performed like in Germany in the 1930s, and so there was a lot of shit going on, and not unlike in the movie Cabaret. There's shit going on, and a certain amount of decadent activity, and I guess one aspect of the work that Bertolt Brecht did is these plays that he would put on. There were aspects of the performance where there was like interaction between the performer and the audience, or there were things that suggested, this is just a bunch of artists up on stage performing and you're watching, but we're all in the same room together having the same kind of experience. And so why pretend that this is fake? I mean, stuff like that. I mean, it was just, and I don't want to simplify or mischaracterize Brecht, but they were they created a lot of substantial work. I think the Three Penny Opera was the most well-known work created by them, but interesting work that this lyric writer and music writer were able to produce. The in the original play that was written by Brecht and Weill, this song was sung by a woman, and she was a prostitute, and the scene had her and the other girls in the brothel singing, and the song was brought to the band by Ray Manzarek, not by Jim Morrison, and just this is probably a good juncture to listen to a little of it.
Sure.
And we can continue talking on the other side.
Well, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die. Oh, moon of Alabama, now must say goodbye. must say goodbye. We lost our good old mama, and must have whiskey, oh, you know why. Yeah.
All right, this song, as you can hear from the very start, it's got a much more of a carnival, sort of, twisted circus sort of vibe to it, and
like a vaudeville horror circus kind of feel to it.
And that instrument that you can hear that makes that strange sound is apparently there's an instrument called a marxophone that was used to get that kind of odd sound, and it's this song it's very unlike the other songs on the side up to this point. It's got that sort of European weird non-rock vibe to it. It doesn't sound like rock and roll. It sounds like something that you'd see in the movie Cabaret, for example. And when the Doors were performing at the Whiskey A Go Go in Los Angeles before their first album had come out, one of the artists that they were the opening act for was the Irish band Them, which was fronted at the time by Van Morrison. Mm-hmm. And Van Morrison, while he was watching them before his band went out and did their set as the headliners, specifically took note of, interesting. These sort of, California American boys playing Brecht. It caught his attention. It's hard. And as far as what the song is talking about, oh moon of Alabama, we now must say goodbye. We've lost our good old mama and must have whiskey. Oh, you know why? I mean, why? It sounds like the prostitutes madam is no longer there to. I mean, I don't know what else there is to get from that, and they need some whiskey.
Yeah.
Not particularly profound, but just interesting musically, and I described it as a left turn, but just shows that there's stuff going on with this band that are interesting and in some ways a little unsettling.
Well, and it also, though, at the same time, it has a feel. If you don't know anything about who wrote it, or where it came from, or the time, or that type of thing, I mean, it's got kind of the circus also makes it feel kind of like a staggering, picture a group of guys. It's about 1:30 in the morning, and they're making let's find another bar, because that's although it's the last thing we need, it's what we really want right now. You can kind of feel this, team kind of stumbling down the street, and all they want is, where's the next whiskey bar? And it's kind of got this feel of, towards the end of the night, as opposed to the beginning of the night when they're looking to have a good time. So it captures a modern day feel as well, right? As you listen to the song, even though it does have this older kind of style to it. I mean, I've certainly been at points in my life where this song applied to the crowd I was hanging with.
Well, and that's really a good observation. And think about that. Okay, it's like, look, it's show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Do I need it? Probably not. But we must have whiskey. Oh, you know why? And let's look at, we've talked about the previous, two of the previous songs, Soul Kitchen and Crystal Ship. Soul Kitchen, I guess it's time to close now. I'd really like to stay here all night. I don't want to have to go home. And then, the crystal ship, before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss. I mean, let's not let the night take over.
Yep.
And now this. I mean, so we got 3 songs on this side, which are all kind of about let's keep chasing that high.
Yes.
That we had
and
earlier,
enjoy our time in the night.
Earlier in the that kind of you just chasing the high.
Yep.
And it as people learn over time, that is a fool's errand. That's a dog chasing his tail. Especially with alcohol.
Yep.
And whatnot. But I think that's probably the predominant theme lyrically of this side is that it's don't let the night end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is if there's a theme to this side, that's got to be it. But in any case, an interesting choice for a band like the Doors to put on their debut album. Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill's Alabama Song. All right, now kind of right back in the middle of the road, so to speak, to as close to the middle of the road as the Doors ever got, really, in some ways, is the last track on the side, and probably the Doors' best known song, most widely known song, and arguably it's best just straight pop song. Light My Fire, and most people have heard this song at one point or another. And let's listen to the beginning of the song. This one merits 2 clips, but let's listen to the first one and then talk about it on the other side.
That it would be untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. The time to hesitate is through. No time to wallow in the mire. Try now, we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire.
All right, there you have it, Light My Fire. Very distinctive organ riff or organ line there. And one notable thing about this song, and apparently John Densmore, the name of the drummer of In the Doors, wanted this song to start with just a snare drum hit. And I believe that's the case. I can't support this with anything off the internet or whatnot, but I believe that the reason he wanted to do that is that's how the song Like a Rolling Stone starts, with a snare hit. And one of the things that was discussed amongst the band when they were recording this album was the length of this song, because Light My Fire it's about a 7-minute track. There's a relatively long instrumental break in the middle, and we'll hear a clip from that. But the band discussed the fact that that Like a Rolling Stone, which was a radio hit, was 6 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were, well, no, we won't compress this song because Dylan didn't, or something to that effect. But I mean, just straightforward. You know that it would be untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
You know, and this the music for this song, and I believe that first set of lyrics and chorus, you know, the "Come on, baby, light my fire, try to set the night on fire," was written by Robbie Krieger, not by Jim Morrison, who I think was responsible for a lot of the lyrics, but a very, very catchy, very popular, big hit. I mean, it was a massive radio hit. For the Doors, and probably one of the main reasons why the album itself took off as well as it did. Yeah, not that it's the best track on the album or on the side.
Yep.
But it was a massive radio hit and became incredibly popular.
It brought them into the light. You know, it was a huge hit, and then drew attention to the other stuff that they did, and helped make this debut album a big commercial success. You know, at a time when singles were very important. You know, to be able to to drive that kind of album success. So, you know, really good song. You also hear again that power of Morrison's vocals really come through in this song. Although it's got a more pop-oriented, let's say, feel, you know, to it, he's still got some really solid and powerful vocals as he's belting out, especially some of the choruses, right? The verses are got that smooth kind of low voice, but as he starts to really exaggerate how much he wants to light that fire.
You know, and say what you will about Jim Morrison. I mean, I don't think that he is a conventionally talented singer, but I think as a rock and roll performer, I think he had an excellent voice. And you know, the Doors played a fair amount of blues material, and I don't think that he can really pull off blues songs at the way that an authentic bluesman can. Even though I think he kind of aspired to be like that. But in terms of the more pop and rock and roll type material, I think he has an exceptional voice because there's a lot of, you know, whether it's, you know, Bob Dylan or Neil Young or Lou Reed or Jimi Hendrix, those guys couldn't sing in the traditional sense, but they were great rock vocalists. Yes. And I think that Jim Morrison, as cartoonish as he could be on occasion, I think he was an exceptional pop rock vocalist.
Yeah.
And I think that the second verse, you know, the time to hesitate is through, no time to wallow in the mire, try now we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. I think that was Morrison's lyrics. Yeah. And in some ways they kind of spoil the just good old love song, you know, you know, try now we can only lose and our love become a funeral pyre.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, you know, no, I mean, I don't want to lose.
Yeah,
I don't want our funeral, you know, so, but on the other side of the coin, it does kind of fit in with that more sort of mystical, we need to find out what is on the other side sort of aspect of where the Doors are coming from. So even though, it may have turned what was just a decent, nice pop song into something that could be a basis for a more exploratory Doors musical experience.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the you can come on, baby, light my fire. You know, just as compared to some others that we have seen and talked about it, right? A pretty interesting way to describe. Look, this is how I want to set the night on fire with you. But again, huge hit, very popular, still well known these days. I mean, you can talk to people that would don't even know it's the Doors that know the song "Light My Fire" because it continues to get a lot of radio play to this day. Huge hit and a pretty strong way to end this side.
Yeah. And before we wrap up our discussion on this, let's listen to another clip because, like I said, this is 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
And there's a relatively lengthy instrumental break that includes some keyboard soloing as well as a relatively, in my opinion, good guitar solo by Robbie Krieger. So let's check that out and then wrap up on the other side.
Okay.
Okay, well there you have the instrumental break there, and that clip was primarily the guitar soloing by Robbie Krieger, and I think that Robbie Krieger is a good guitar player who played some interesting things, and apparently Jim Morrison, while he was still alive and while the band was performing, thought that Robbie Krieger did not get the recognition that he deserved for the quality of the guitar playing that he provided to the band. But I think the most significant aspect of that part of this song, which is primarily a radio hit, because there was, even though they did not, they stretched out on the album version of this song and it was 7 minutes long, there was an abbreviated single version of this song that eliminated most of the instrumental break.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was relatively common around 1967, or bands that were performing in 1966 and 1967, was the bands would stretch out. And that probably started more in 1966 than 1965, because the Beatles, when they were still performing, they played their songs 2 minutes, 3 minutes and they didn't jam on stage.
Yeah.
But come 1966, 1967, that was more common at live performances. And I mentioned Pink Floyd earlier in England. Like in 1965, 1966, when they were performing before their first album came out, they'd be doing like a cover of some R&B song or some blues song. But then in the middle, they'd play just the regular song, but they'd go into these twisted, psychotic jams in the middle of the song. And then they'd come back out in the, I'm a king bee, kind of just, regular blues song. Well, with this song, even though, you've got this sort of cheesy organ riff and real solid pop subject matter and come on baby, light my fire. The hook. I mean, it had that pop hook to it.
Mm-hmm.
When they'd play it live, they'd stretch out and it would become a little bit more exploratory. And it's really a fairly decent keyboard solo by Ray Manzarek, and I think a very good lead guitar break. Before the days of the Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple kind of guitar hero type performance in rock music, and so I think it makes what is basically a quick and dirty pops, not quick and dirty, but a relatively straightforward pop song into something a little more substantial musically.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of this, the way that this turned out, stems from how this music was put together before it was actually recorded. I mean, so many bands, they go into the studio with this material, sometimes making up the material while they're in the studio. They record these songs, they get it onto the album, and then they go out and they perform them. And to your point, it became more and more popular to take this 3.5-minute radio song and then stretch it out in their performance. Well, like you talked about at the beginning, most of the material on this album was just stuff that they were already playing in the bars, right? Before they went into the studio. So they'd have these more elongated versions that were, that they were doing that they had as material. So they probably took a little bit more of what they were actually doing on stage and brought it in with this particular song. And they certainly weren't afraid to do the longer songs. If you look, and obviously it's the other side, we're not talking about it, but on the flip side of this album, number 2, the song The End was a very long jam, longer than anything here. So that might be a part of it too, about where this music, was kind of put together in the first place on stage and then brought into the studio.
And the, you mentioned The End, which was used in various parts of the movie Apocalypse Now. I mean, and that, I haven't listened to The End in a long time. Back when you're living in the dorm and you get a bunch of people and you fire up the graphics bong and then you sit around listening to music. Okay, listen to The End is kind of cool.
That's it. High on the playlist.
Well, wow, let's play side 2, we'll listen to The End. And whereas, as life goes on and the passage of time takes its toll.
The crystal ship moves on.
The crystal ship is already back in port, man.
Yeah.
And so, but the Doors, and then there's other material, by the Doors that would be worthy of a podcast, and perhaps we'll get around to that. But it is unfortunate that the more ridiculous aspects of Jim Morrison's behavior, a lot of it on stage, occurred on stage when they were performing, either because he had overindulged in drugs or alcohol or a combination thereof, started to kind of transcend, their actual music.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a number of options available if people want to check out live music by the Doors. And I've never really been interested in that myself because whatever merit may be there, it seems kind of overshadowed with the antics of Jim Morrison performing, and there's an album of a bootleg of Jimi Hendrix called "I Woke Up This Morning and Found Myself Dead," and it's got some material that was recorded in New York City with Johnny Winter is on stage with Hendrix, and Jim Morrison comes on stage. And when you listen to that, it's like, this guy is a drunken fool. is all you can think when you hear that. And I won't repeat what he sings about on this album that I referred to, but it's unfortunate that this sort of cult of Jim Morrison that focuses on his his, the party aspects of him, because even though, some of his poetry is just a little too much something, the music that, for the most part, that he produced with the Doors, there's a lot of good stuff there. There is a lot of good stuff there.
And a lot of good stuff on this side.
And a lot of good stuff on this side. Because this is the first side of music that the band ever put out, and it has a number of their more significant songs, in my opinion, and is worth anybody's time. So check out the Doors' first album, Side 1, and you probably won't be disappointed.
I would agree. Well worth a spin. All the songs from start to finish really have a place in the album and in the Doors catalog. So a great album, a great side, and a great conversation, Mike.
Sounds good. All right, Mark. We will talk to you next time.